Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the public workshop on the Department of Toxic Substances Control, DTSC's proposal to list nail products containing methyl methacrylate as a priority product. My name is Chin Xiao, and I'm a public participation specialist with DTSC and will be facilitating this workshop. Let me take this moment to also welcome the participants joining us via webcast. On behalf of DTSC, we are glad you are all participating today. Workshop presentation slides are available on the Safer Consumer Products SCP Workshops and Events webpage. The workshop will be recorded and posted to the SCP website. Our distinguished panel members include Carl Palmer, Acting Deputy Director for SCP Program, Andre Algazi, Chief and Manager for Chemical Product Evaluation Section for SCP Program, Christine Papagni, Team Lead and Senior Environmental Scientist Specialist, Dr. Dichle Yordimchi, Senior Hazardous Substances Engineer and Presenter. The program is as follows. We'll begin with an introduction by Carl Palmer. This will be followed by a brief presentation on the draft product chemical profile on nail products containing methyl methacrylate, MMA, by Dichle Yordimchi. Next, we will take clarifying questions from the audience. We will then provide an opportunity for public comments. Please turn in a comment card or a pre-printed comment form so we can have you state your comment into our microphone during this time. The time allowed for each person to speak will depend on the number of people who wish to provide comment. If you have more comments than the time allows, or if you wish to provide more detailed comments, please submit your written comments via our CalSafer website. The comment period on the CalSafer website will be available until March 20, 2020, until 11:59 p.m. You that are joining us via webcast, please send comments and questions during the workshop to the email address saferconsumerproducts@dtsc.ca.gov. Workshop will adjourn when there are no additional comments or at 12 noon, whichever comes first. Please join me now in welcoming Carl Palmer to give the welcome address.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So welcome to our workshop. I'm just going to be brief. I want to highlight a few things, but first and foremost, I wanted to thank everyone in attendance here today, as well as those of you online. We're really looking forward to moving forward in this space, but hearing from you today and as we move forward. Wanted to highlight a couple of things. We've been working in the nail product space for quite a while, and as you know, we've been already looking at toluene in nail products and moving forward on listing that as a priority product. Today's workshop on methyl methacrylate, I didn't say that very, MMA. We're going to hear a good presentation from staff today about the work we've done on that. But I also wanted to highlight there's other things we've been doing in this sector of importance. One, we've been testing a variety of nail products at our environmental chemistry lab. And we'll be shortly getting all that data and combining that and putting our findings out so that we can fill some data gaps that we were interested in. And that will be interesting. And we'll be sharing that with all of you. Also, we'll be shortly embarking on doing what we call an information call-in, where we will be sending questions to nail product manufacturers. We've reached out already to the two main trade groups, the Personal Care Product Council and ICMAD, who will be helping us make sure that we get to the right people. And we'll be eager to get those questions answered as well. And then I wanted to just also mention that we produced some guidelines for the Healthy Nail Salon Recognition Program, which the legislature asked us to do a couple of years ago. And we've been working with local agencies to inform them on those guidelines and see if that's something that local agencies can implement to ensure that salons can be as healthy as they can be, and that salons that actually do use best practices can protect their workers as well as their customers and hopefully get an advantage in the market for being safe. So we're doing a lot in this sector, and we'll continue that. And I'm excited today to hear from Dijlay, who's going to present to us our findings. But I really want to emphasize that it's really important that we hear from all of you. This process is really designed for us to share what we know and what we've learned. There are gaps there in our knowledge. We would like your help in filling those gaps. If there's things that you think we either got wrong or that we need to know that we are not aware of, this is an opportunity to tell us about it today as well as in the comment period. And so that's really important so that we get good information so that we can make good decisions. So with that, I'll just move along, and I'm going to introduce Andre Algazi, who runs our chemical product evaluation team, and he's going to give you a little overview of our process just as a reminder before we get into MMA. Thank you.
So good morning, everybody. Thank you, Carl. For the benefit of those of you who are new to our process and haven't been engaged with us over the last couple of years, we've been talking about nail products. And also to refresh your memory, if you have been engaged with us, I wanted to give a little bit of context this morning before we get into the details of today's proposed priority product about the process and where we are in it right now. So this is our regulatory framework. This slide is sort of a schematic diagram of how our process works. There are 4 steps represented by the horizontal lines 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first being the candidate chemicals. Second is priority products. Third, alternatives analysis. And then finally, regulatory response. So I'm going to sort of walk through each of these steps. So the candidate chemicals list was added into our framework regulations at the time we adopted them in 2013. And it's a list of lists. So we've incorporated 23 lists of chemicals that have been put together by authoritative bodies in various parts of the world based on sort of 2 general categories. The purple circles represent what are called exposure potential lists, and they include lists of chemicals for biomonitoring in humans, toxic air contaminants, and chemicals that are identified because of impairment of water bodies. The other 15 lists represented by the blue or blue-green circles, and if you don't see colors, the larger number, so the ones on the right of the slide, are listed based on sharing 1 or more hazard traits. So, for example, there are lists of chemicals that are carcinogens, mutagens, and reproductive toxicants. There are respiratory toxicants, developmental neurotoxicants, etc. So these 23 lists are compiled together in an informational list that we have on our website, on our CalSafer website. The chemical we're talking about today, methyl methacrylate, is a candidate chemical. It appears on several of the constituent lists of our candidate chemicals list. So every quarter, we update the informational list with changes to the underlying source list. So many of these lists do change over time, and we do incorporate those changes on a periodic basis. I've listed some example chemicals that are found in nail products that we know of here. The link on this slide takes you to the informational list if you're interested in perusing and looking at what other chemicals might be of interest to you. So in the 4-step process, we are in the 2nd step. So the candidate chemicals list was added by, as I mentioned, as part of our framework regulations. We haven't done any changes, additions, or any other sort of modifications to the list, although we could add chemicals to the list, or we could add additional lists to the candidate list. We haven't done that. So the main place that we've been active has been in identifying priority products and then in the alternatives analysis step, which I will describe briefly. So initially with nail products, we had done what we've been calling scoping research, where we were identifying products and chemicals of interest that might meet our regulatory criteria. And those 2, we have what are called key prioritization principles, which is for something to be a priority product, there has to be potential for exposure to 1 or more candidate chemicals, or they're called chemicals of concern once we actually list them as a priority product. And secondly, there has to be potential for that exposure to contribute to or cause significant or widespread adverse impact. So one or more significant or widespread adverse impacts. So it's a narrative standard. There's not a risk threshold that we need to show has been exceeded. We sort of base it on those two criteria, and there are a lot of factors that go into making that determination. So in our initial research, we identified methyl methacrylate as a chemical of concern, or it's a candidate chemical of concern. And we looked into the uses of this chemical, and you're going to hear about that in a moment. And so we've put together our technical compilation of our findings, which is called the product chemical profile, which is, I think, it's certainly on CalSafer, and there may have been a copy or two in the room. And that lays out both the findings that we've made on the hazard traits of methyl methacrylate, potential for exposure to methyl methacrylate from nail products, and potential adverse impacts. It also kind of talks about the regulatory basis for our proposal. So right now we're in the sort of first vetting of this proposal. Our intention today is to tell you what we've found so far and to solicit your comments and input so that we can refine and improve our proposal before we go into a more formal rulemaking process. So public workshop and public comment period are really important to us in making sure that we get it right before we codify it in regulations. Once we finalize the product chemical profile, we'll proceed to rulemaking, which provides additional public comment opportunities. We will have a 45-day public comment period on our proposed regulations text. The profile itself will be sort of one of the main documents relied on, but the comment period will be on the specific text of our regulations. Once the regulations are finalized, the third step of our process is alternatives analysis. In that step, manufacturers of the priority product are asked to identify one or more potentially safer alternatives and to do a multimedia alternative analysis that considers impacts throughout the life cycle of the product, from resource extraction, transportation, manufacturing, use, end of life. So the whole life cycle of the product, and do a rigorous comparison of the trade-offs between whatever alternative the manufacturer has identified and the priority product that we've identified. So if you aren't familiar with our framework, it might have struck you that it's the manufacturer that actually identifies what product or products to identify as potential alternatives. Once we've gone through and once the manufacturers have submitted the alternatives analysis, it's a two-step process. There are iterations, there's public comment. We will finalize the alternatives analysis and then, based on the findings of that document, decide on a regulatory response. So that regulatory response could be one of about 6 options that are laid out in our regulations that range from no regulatory response at all to things like product labeling requirements, restrictions on sale, or end-of-life stewardship. So there's a whole range of options, and an important thing to note is that we haven't determined at the time we have conversations like we're having today what our regulatory response might be. So that will really be determined by the alternatives analyses that are done by the manufacturers. So I hope that's given you a little bit of context for what we're talking about today. We're in step 2 of 4. Your input today will really help us make sure we get it right before we get into a formal regulatory process. And we haven't made any determinations yet about what regulatory response we might pose, and that's kind of inherent in our process. So with that, I will hand it off to Dicle Yardımcı, who will give you an overview of what we found with regard to MMA and nail products and what we're proposing. So thank you.
Thank you, Andre, and welcome all, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to announce DTSC's proposal to list nail products containing methyl methacrylate, MMA, as a priority product. I will also give you updates on DTSC's other nail product efforts today as well. I'd like to start with the definition of the priority product. As Andre mentioned, we are now at the second step of the SCP regulatory framework, which is the priority product step. And priority product must meet two criteria. First criteria is there are potential exposures to a candidate chemical in the product. And second criteria is one or more exposures have the potential to contribute to or cause significant or widespread adverse impacts. I will walk you through our technical document, which we call a profile today, and explain how we met these two criteria to propose nail products containing methyl methacrylate as a priority product. My presentation today will have two different parts. First part will focus on the proposed priority product, the product and chemical definitions, hazard rates of MMA, and the exposure potential to MMA from nail products. Then I will move on to the second part, which will be the updates on DTSC's other nail product efforts, which include our additional chemical research in nail products, DTSC's analytical lab study, information call-in, and healthy nail salon recognition programs. Start with the proposed priority product. We have identified the product chemical definitions, exposure potential, and hazard rates. And the key study is in a draft technical document. You see the cover page of that document here. We call this a profile, and we post this draft profile on our CalSafer site. And this is a draft document, which means that during the comment period and today we are seeking for your input, and we would like to incorporate that input as appropriate into this draft document and other documentation as we prepare for rulemaking. In this profile, we have defined two main product categories that may contain MMA. First product category we defined that may contain MMA is nail coatings. Nail coatings are any clear or colored paint, polish, lacquer, enamel, or gel products that is marketed or sold to the application to fingernails or toenails. And in this slide, you see a list of the type of products that falls under nail coatings product category. The second main product category we define in the profile that may contain MMA is acrylic nails. Acrylic nails are artificial nails. They have two components, liquid acrylic monomer and acrylic powder. And MMA is the liquid acrylic monomer. MMA is mixed with the acrylic powder prior application to the natural nail surface, where MMA polymerizes on the nail surface and forms the acrylic nail. There are some acrylic powders that may contain polymerized methyl methacrylate, also known as PMMA, may contain residual unpolymerized MMA, or PMMA may degrade to release MMA. However, DTSC does not have the information on the commonality, presence, or concentration of this residual MMA in the PMMA containing products. In the draft profile right now, we have defined MMA as a liquid acrylic monomer for the acrylic nails product category. Now that we have defined the products that may contain MMA, I'm going to move on to discuss the candidate chemical methyl methacrylate, MMA. MMA is a clear, colorless liquid. But most importantly, it's a volatile liquid monomer, which means that it can readily vaporize into indoor air and can be inhaled as vapors from indoor air. And it is listed as a toxic air contaminant by an authoritative body, California Air Resources Board. And there are several injuries reported from the nail product consumers and nail salon workers who used MMA-containing nail products. Therefore, there are existing regulations on MMA-containing nail products. What are these existing regulations? In the early 70s, the US FDA banned products that contain 100% MMA concentration from the market after they received several injury reports. And in 2015, California's Board of Barbering and Cosmetology prohibited any product that contained MMA as an intentionally added ingredient in their licensed salons and cosmetology schools. In addition to California, There are 30 other states also prohibited the use of products containing MMA in the licensed salons and cosmetology schools as well. As you can see, these regulations exist because nail product consumers and salon workers reported adverse health impacts due to the hazard traits of MMA. And MMA has two main hazard traits, dermal toxicity and respiratory toxicity. Both of these hazard traits are well characterized. They are well demonstrated in human exposures and animal models. I will walk you through some of the adverse impacts of these hazard traits and highlight a few key studies that are also summarized in our draft profile. One of the adverse impacts of the dermal toxicity of MMA is allergic contact dermatitis. A 2016 study conducted among various industry workers, including nail technicians, patch tested for MMA. A patch test is a test method. It's used to determine whether a person's skin whether a chemical causes allergic inflammation to a person's skin. This study showed that 21 of the 53 occupational exposures were due to nail products, and 51% of the industry workers, including nail technicians, were patch tested positive for MMA. Another study in 2018 was performed among 4 nail product consumers. And these consumers applied the gel products at home. They also reported allergic contact dermatitis. And 3 of these 4 consumers patch tested positive for methacrylates, including MMA. Other adverse health impacts include skin irritation and inflammation, nail damage, nail discoloration, infection, redness, and pain. As I mentioned, the other well-characterized hazard trait of MMA is respiratory toxicity. And it's listed as a toxic air contaminant by California Air Resources Board. And one of the adverse impacts is MMA is a respiratory tract irritant. A 2011 study was performed among various industry workers, including nail salon workers, that were occupationally exposed to MMA reported respiratory tract irritation. And in addition, there are several animal inhalation studies also reported MMA as a respiratory tract irritant. MMA exposure has been linked to occupational asthma and cosmetologists. A 2014 case study reported 6 of the 9 occupational asthma cases in cosmetologists were due to the acrylates containing acrylic nails in nail technicians. And there are several other studies reported adverse impacts such as shortness of breath, coughing, and wheezing in nail technicians who were occupationally exposed that worked with methacrylate monomers in products such as acrylic nails and gel nails. Therefore, both nail, as you can see, both the nail product consumers and salon workers reported adverse health impacts due to the hazard traits of MMA. DTSC conducted a research to evaluate the presence of MMA in nail products. And our research showed that there is MMA present in retail nail products. Methyl's database reported 4 nail coatings and acrylic nail products in US and 19 products worldwide that contain MMA have been introduced to the market since 2010. EWG Skin Deep Cosmetics database reported 24 nail coatings in US, and US EPA's CPCAT database reported 2 acrylic nail products in US that contain MMA. Therefore, since its presence in retail nail products, there's potential for exposure to MMA from the nail products. And now I'm going to talk about what are the exposure routes to MMA from nail products and who are the exposed populations to MMA from nail products. There are 2 main exposure routes to MMA from nail products. One is via inhalation. As mentioned, MMA is volatile. It can vaporize into indoor air, and can be inhaled as MMA vapors from indoor air during the product application. And second main exposure route is, the other main exposure route is dermal, via direct skin contact during product application as well. Our research showed that MMA is present in retail nail products that are intended for home use. But we also find out that recent studies detected MMA in salon indoor air after it's been prohibited through regulations in California and other states after it's been prohibited. DTSC does not have the information on the source of the MMA in salon indoor air after it's been prohibited, although we could think of possible scenarios that may explain the presence of MMA in salon indoor air. One scenario could be we found that it's present in retail nail products. We're thinking customers may be bringing in these retail nail products for salons for nail technicians to apply. Another possible scenario could be the PMMA containing nail products may have unpolymerized residual MMA, or PMMA may degrade to release MMA. However, we don't know the actual source of the MMA in salon indoor air. Therefore, because its presence in retail nail products and detected in salon indoor air, they're potentially exposed populations to MMA from nail products. One of the populations exposed to MMA from nail products is the nail product consumers themselves, including children and pregnant women. Children and fetuses are more sensitive to the adverse impacts from MMA exposure due to their physiological differences than the adults. There are several factors that may enhance nail product consumers' exposure to MMA in the home environment. For instance, home environments may be poorly ventilated, and consumers are not trained on the safe use of these products. Products are generally not labeled with the exposure potential. And there is no minimum age limit for the purchase or use of these products. Therefore, adolescents and even children who are purchasing and using these products may be less aware of the exposure potential. And as I mentioned, we found recent studies detected MMA in salon indoor air. The other population may be exposed to MMA from nail products are the nail salon workers, patrons, their children, and their customers. And I would like to note that nail products are very popularly used among US women. And I would like to highlight the sales data. This data belongs to a retail nail product sales data for US. DTSC does not have this California-specific data. But as you can see here, over 100 million, which represents about the 60% of the US women, use nail products annually. And the annual retail nail product sales exceeded $1 million, and this number is expected to increase in the future. And the products that may contain MMA, such as acrylic nail products and nail polish sales, represent the 62% of the total retail nail products, which is quite a high percentage of products that may potentially contain MMA. And nail polish, particularly, is being one of the products that may contain MMA with such high sales among US women. I will highlight a study that summarizes the nail polish use in California homes. This survey, conducted in 2010 in Northern and Central California homes among females from various age groups, summarized the nail polish used in California homes as follows. 45% of children who are 5 years old or younger use nail polish at home. And this number increases to 79% for children who are older than 5. And the same study, the 53% of the adults younger than 55 who had children in the same household use nail polish at home. And 39% of adults older than 55 also use nail polish at home. As you see here, this is quite a high percentage of women in California, including children, use nail polish at home. The study also highlights that parental use of the nail products influence children's use of these products. And some of the parents use these nail products on their children. DTSC has now found studies that measured MMA in US homes, but we do found studies that detected MMA in salon indoor air after it's been prohibited through regulations in California and some other states as well. And this study was done in 2016 after MMA was prohibited in California salons. This is done in 8 California nail salons, and all the salons here, they measured MMA. And the study found significant positive correlations between the MMA and the total volatile organic compound, VOC concentrations, number of acrylic nail services, and VOC concentrations, including MMA is being one of the VOCs, and also the number of gel services and MMA concentrations. The source of the MMA in this study was unknown, and there are other states also detected MMA in salon indoor air after it was prohibited. 2019 study in the 6 Colorado nail salons measured MMA in 2 of the salons in this study, and several measurements exceeded the US EPA reference inhalation concentration. A reference inhalation concentration is the concentration chronic exposure to a chemical over a lifetime that does not cause adverse impacts. And this study, salon owners claim that they can still purchase MMA from Colorado nail supply stores after the ban. Another 2019 study in 25 salons in New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia also measured MMA in all the salons after it was prohibited in New York and New Jersey. Again, several measurements here exceeded the US EPA reference inhalation concentration. And one salon, particularly in this study, measured the MMA concentration as high as over 900 ppm, was offering artificial nail services on the test day. This measurement exceeded the Cal-OSHA permissible exposure limit, which is the 8-hour time average limit. And to summarize, MMA has well-characterized hazard traits, and these hazard traits cause adverse health impacts in nail salon workers and nail product consumers. Our research found out that it is present in retail nail products, and recent studies measured MMA in salon indoor air after it's been prohibited through regulations. Therefore, there is potential for exposure to MMA from nail products, and MMA exposure has the potential to cause or contribute to significant or widespread adverse impacts. Therefore, DTSC is proposing nail products containing methyl methacrylate as a priority product. And once the regulation is adopted, our next step is to ask manufacturers to conduct an alternative analysis. Alternative analysis is the full evaluation of the safer potential alternatives to MMA in regards to the function, hazards, and exposure. In the draft profile on our CalSafer side, we posted a readily available information on alternatives to MMA. Ethyl methacrylate, also known as EMA, is a known alternative to MMA. It is used as a liquid acrylic monomer in the preparation of acrylic nails. DTSC has made no determination on EMA's safety relative to MMA, and please keep in mind that this is not a complete list of alternatives. We put together this information in the profile, and we are hoping that this will be a helpful starting point for manufacturers once the regulation is adopted when they're conducting the alternative analysis regarding to the function, exposure, and hazards. And with that, DTSC met the two criteria that's defined in the SCP regulations to propose a priority product. The first criteria is there is potential for exposure to MMA from nail products. And second criteria, there is potential for MMA exposure to cause or contribute to significant or widespread adverse impacts. Therefore, DTSC is proposing nail products containing methyl methacrylate as a priority product. And today and during our public comment period, which is now open and closes on the March 20th, on our CalSafer side, we are hoping to get your input as we try to finalize the profile and other documentation as we prepare for rulemaking. And this concludes the first part of the talk today, which was on the proposed priority product. Now, I'm going to move on to give you updates on DTSC's other nail product efforts. In addition to this priority product, we have been also working on other efforts regarding to the nail products, which include our additional research and a list of chemicals in various nail products. And we are also conducting an analytical lab study to evaluate the presence of the chemicals in various nail product categories. The other effort we are taking is planning to conduct an information call-in to fill in the data gaps regarding to nail products by engaging the industry. And working on the implementation and planning to creating voluntary healthy nail salon recognition programs statewide in California. I'm going to start with what other chemicals we have been looking at in various nail products in addition to MMA. As most of you know, DTSC proposed nail products containing toluene as a priority product at a public workshop we held in March 2019. This profile sent for an external science panel review in the fall of 2019, and DTSC plans to initiate the rulemaking for this profile of fall of 2020. In addition to these two proposed priority products, toluene and MMA, there is a list of chemicals we have researched. And you see the list of chemicals, the other chemicals we have researched in various nail products here. And this list formed based on DTSC's research of the Methyl database lists these chemicals in various nail products. And I will go over each chemical and try to give you a brief summary of DTSC's findings for each of these chemicals. Acrylic acid used in nail polish and gel polish to provide longer lasting effect, faster drying, and easier removal. It's a respiratory, dermal, and ocular toxicant. DTSC has not found studies with the acrylic acid as a target analyte in salon indoor air, and we are currently evaluating this chemical. Diethylhexyl phthalate used in nail polish as a plasticizer. It's a developmental, reproductive, and endocrine toxicant, and an animal carcinogen. There is a 2018 study detected this chemical at low concentrations in a few nail products, and significant exposure to this chemical from nail products is not expected, but we are currently evaluating this chemical. Tertiary butyl alcohol used in nail polishes and polish removers as a solvent. It's an animal carcinogen, but its carcinogenicity in humans is not documented. It is a volatile chemical, therefore there is potential for inhalation exposure, and DTSC is currently evaluating this chemical. N-methylpyrrolidone used in nail polish removers as a solvent. It's been phased out. From the nail polish removers, as Methyl database lists only one product in the last 5 years in polish removers that contain this chemical in the last 5 years, but it may be present in other nail product categories. It's a carcinogen, developmental and reproductive toxicant. It's been phased out in European Union. And DTSC is currently evaluating the presence of this chemical in other nail product categories. Carbon black used in artificial nails, UV gels, and nail polish as a colorant. It's a potential carcinogen and an aquatic toxicant. Carbon black is dispersed in nail products and unlikely to escape into indoor air as respirable particles. Therefore, significant inhalation exposure to carbon black from nail products is not expected, and we are not recommending this chemical for prioritization at this time. Aluminum powder used in nail polish as a colorant. It's a respiratory and neurological toxicant. And similar to carbon black, aluminum powder is also dispersed in nail products and unlikely to escape as respirable particles into indoor air. So significant inhalation exposure to this chemical is not expected. And it's not being recommended for prioritization at this time. Isopropyl alcohol used in nail coatings and nail polish removers as a solvent. It's the eye, nose, and respiratory tract irritant. It's been detected at low concentrations in salon indoor air and some studies, and unlikely to cause significant adverse impacts. We are not recommending this chemical for prioritization at this time. Phosphoric acid used in nail polish and gel polish as a pH adjuster. It's a respiratory toxicant. There's low potential for adverse impacts, and it is not recommended for prioritization at this time. Acetone is used in nail polish removers and nail coatings as a solvent. It's a neurotoxicant, eye and respiratory irritant. It's the only exempt volatile organic compound in nail polish removers by California Air Resources Board. And DTSC is not recommending this chemical for prioritization at this time. So this was the list of the chemicals we have researched in addition to MMA and toluene in various nail products. Now let's take a look at the additional products and chemicals we are actively researching. These two lists here for the additional product categories and chemicals we are currently researching were formed based on the stakeholder input we have received at public workshops we held on nail products. And the additional products we are currently researching are primers, bonders, bond-aid products, nail dry sprays and aerosols, glues, resins, artificial nail products such as acrylic powders and liquids. And the chemicals we are continuing to research are methylethyl ketone, tosylamide formaldehyde resin, formaldehyde, and triphenyl phosphate. Of course, in addition to these chemicals and product categories we are actively researching, we are taking other efforts regarding to nail products. And one of those efforts is conducting an analytical lab study. DTSC's analytical lab study is designed to determine the presence and concentration of the candidate chemicals in retail and professional use nail products. This study covers testing of over 150 products in from 21 different product types that falls one of the nail product categories, and you can see some of those nail products categories listed on this slide. We have initiated the product testing in fall of 2019, and we will evaluate the results as they become available. This testing is still ongoing. Another effort we're taking regarding to nail products is plan to conduct an information call-in. SCP regulations give DTSC authority to conduct an information call-in, which may apply to all manufacturers, importers, assemblers, and retailers of a specific chemical or product or group of chemicals or products. This is another tool for DTSC to fill in data gaps by engaging this industry and to improve the understanding and reduce the research time. As Carl mentioned, we are already having some conversations with the trade associations. Some of them include Personal Care Products Council, PCPC, and ICMET. So we are having several conversations with them. And we are planning to initiate the information call-in by early 2020. And the other effort we're taking, as most of you know, DTSD is involved in the creation of the voluntary healthy nail salon recognition programs statewide in California. These programs are established to prevent, minimize, or reduce nail salon workers and their customers' exposure to toxic chemicals in nail products. These programs are intended for local government agencies in California to create the voluntary programs in their jurisdictions. DTSC met the bill mandate, and we published the guidelines, which you may access via this link provided on the slide here, the program guidelines. These are also a good source for best salon practices for the interested parties. But I would like to stress that these the creation of these voluntary programs really relies on the local government agencies and their resources. And often we hear they may have limited resources to create these programs in their jurisdictions. DTSC is continuing to work on the outreach and implementation planning for these programs statewide in California. The next steps we are taking regarding to nail products to receive the public comments on the proposed priority product, which is the nail products containing methyl methacrylate, MMA. Our public comment period is now open, and you can access the public comment period on our CalSafer site via this link provided on the slide here. And along with the public comment period, we also posted a list of questions for stakeholders, and we encourage you to provide your comments and responses to these questions before the public comment period closes on the March 20th. And we are continuing to research other additional chemicals in various nail products and finish the testing on the analytical lab study and evaluate those results to determine the presence and concentration of the chemicals in various nail products, and planning to do the information call-in that we can engage the industry to fill in some of the data gaps we have, and continue to work on the outreach and implementation of the healthy nail salon recognition program statewide in California. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention, and I will turn over to Chin that we can start receiving any clarifying questions or comments you may have. Thank you.
Website attendees, please submit questions or comments to saferconsumerproducts@dtsc.ca.gov.
Thank you. Lisette Van Vliet, Breast Cancer Prevention Partners. Thank you very much for that very thorough presentation of all the work that you've been doing. We will be submitting comments by the deadline, but I just wanted to make a few points here. First of all, MMA is on our Breast Cancer Prevention Partners red list of products that have harmful properties, and it's on there for several reasons, which we will explain in our comments, but as such, we support your nominating and adopting this product, particularly given the kinds of exposures that you found. The second one is that we affirm that this is an environmental justice issue. As you may recall, we had collaboration with the California Healthy Nail Salon Collaborative on AB 2775, I think the number was, the law for the disclosure of ingredients of salon products. And that only just recently passed. So for a lot of nail salon workers who are of Vietnamese heritage, they did not have access to the ingredients, and they certainly did not have access to the data sheets in their own language either. The third point I'd like to make is that asked the question about references for the technical documentation, and I see that you've referenced the European Chemicals Agency brief substance profile, but I wanted to point out that there is actually an evaluation document that was done by the French ANSES, and in it, it was looking at the respiratory toxicity issue, and it also has a concern about mutagenicity. So that's something that you can, I can send you the link, but that's something that you can pursue further. They found as part of their research a number of occupational disease cases from 2001 to 2017, I think. So that's something that may be of use to you. And then finally, just a thought about the Healthy Nail Salon Recognition Program. If I understand correctly, you're mostly doing outreach to local governments to create voluntary programs, but it might be useful to have a brochure for interested individuals to give to their local salons to raise their awareness about this program, even if their local government hasn't initiated it, so that the salon owners can then contact the local governments, and also a brochure for local governments. I mean, some people might know their city council members or their county supervisors and want to do direct awareness raising as consumers and not have gotten interest in their local salons, but have ways of contacting their local governments. So it's just a thought about further outreach tools that individuals can take up either directly with their local governments, and be that social media or a brochure or a downloadable postcard or whatever. That's, I think, more your realm than mine. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Swati Sharma, and I'm a research and policy consultant for the California Healthy Nail Salon Collaborative. Previously, I worked for San Francisco's Department of Environment, where I helped start the first Healthy Nail Salon recognition program in the nation. We appreciate the opportunity to provide comment. We also appreciate the good work that the staff of DTSC has been doing to help make safer salons and implement the Safer Consumer Product Program. Founded in 2005, the California Healthy Nail Salon Collaborative comprises approximately of 30 public health and environmental advocates, nail salon workers, owners, community-based groups, and allies in government agencies. Our mission is to protect and improve the health and safety and rights of nail salon worker community. Most nail salon workers and owners in California are Vietnamese immigrants. Most are women, many are of reproductive age. Language can be a barrier to accessing information about state, federal, labor, and occupational health laws, and regulations designed to protect their rights and safeties. Nail salon workers may work as many as 6 days a week and 8 to 10 hours a day. Generally, we appreciate that MMA nail products is being proposed as a chemical product combination to undergo analysis under the Safer Consumer Product Program, and agree that regulatory criteria for doing so have been met with this chemical product combination. We also appreciate that DTSC is exploring additional chemicals in nail products such as methyl ethyl ketone, triphenyl phosphate, and formaldehyde. We believe it is better to adhere to the precautionary principle, especially for the most vulnerable, like the nail salon working professionals. So we urge that DTSC to be as expansive as possible and demand information from nail product manufacturers to the fullest extent of your authority. DTSC should not just target individual chemicals, but chemical groups used in nail products as well. In addition to the monomer methyl methacrylate, DTSC should also consider polymerized methyl methacrylate, ethyl methacrylate, and other methacrylates. Ethyl methacrylate, or EMA, is often used as a substitute for MMA, but EMA raises similar concerns as far as allergic contact dermatitis and occupational asthma. To date, however, there is little, if any, study regarding the relative safety of MMA versus EMA, or many other methacrylates being substituted for MMA. We will supply additional information as well as a full comment letter, and when it becomes available to us through our current projects and research, we'll provide any information that is necessary for you. Thank you again for all of your good work.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any comments online? Sure, we can go ahead and address that.
So we have one question or comment. Hi, my name is Miriam Rotkin-Elman. I am a senior scientist at the Natural Resources Defense Council. Can you provide more information on the data call-in? 1, has the data call-in already been conducted? 2, does the data call-in include information about MMA only? 3, what chemicals and products are included in the data call-in? 4, what is the timeline for receiving this information and making it public? Also, what is timeline for posting the data from the analytical laboratory study? Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Miriam, for your comments. This is Andre Algazi speaking. The information call-in will be broad in scope. It will not be limited to methyl methacrylate. We have not conducted the call-in yet, and we've had, as Dichle and I think Carl mentioned, have had some conversations with a couple of industry associations, specifically the Personal Care Products Council and ICMAD, Independent Cosmetics Manufacturers and Distributors, to sort of vet our questions, make sure we're framing them in the right way, that the way we refer to products makes sense to them, things like that. So at this time, we're in the preparatory phase, and as Dichle mentioned, we do intend to issue the information call-in in the early half, let's say the first half of 2020, under promise, hopefully. With regard to, what was the second part of the question?
Timelines.
Timelines for the lab's data. So that study, the analysis is ongoing currently, and I think we would hope to have data late spring to make public. As of now, that seems to be what we would expect. So stay engaged if you're interested, and keep following our website. And eList, I suspect, will be announcing things there as well. Carl or Dichle might have something to add.
I don't know, Dichle, you want to add anything? I would just say, Miriam, if you have questions you think we should be asking in our information call-in, you're welcome to make comments on those. I mean, part of this overarching process is for us to collect information that informs us on what we're looking at, but also if there's things that we're not looking at or that we should be, someone thinks we should be looking at, that might be a reasonable question too. So, but as Andre said, it's a very broad approach at this point.
Hi, this is Christine Papagni. I just wanted to provide a little clarification on the lab study. We don't actually anticipate making the data. Probably. Okay. The data probably won't be made public until summer or fall. It won't be made public as early as spring. Excuse me.
And I would just, this is Dichle, I would like to just add on, there was a question about the product types for the information call-in. So our initial plan is ask about the product formulations, for the manufacturers, the type of products they make. So our initial attempt, we are currently now not specified like product types, but we are planning to ask various different product types for the information call-in. And in terms of timeline, we want to make sure we get initial input from having conversations with the trade association so we don't miss anyone and we ask the right questions to the right people.
Any other online questions?
Are there clarifying questions or comments?
Well, we have plenty of time. So if you had, we're not bound by being too formal here. If anyone has any follow-up questions, we can address those as well. Lisa?
Thank you. With respect to your dialogue with the industry trade associations, I'm wondering, do you have a sense of how well they cover the internet sales? Because that's an area where there are sometimes in other product categories sellers who are not members of the industry trade associations, and so that seems like an area to explore. Thank you.
That's a good question. I'll let Gisela follow up, but we do know, for example, that PCPC tends to represent the larger manufacturers and ICMAD some of the smaller ones. And certainly there are probably offshore and other online retailers that are not members of either of those organizations. And so we'll be making efforts to do the best we can. We're open to any suggestions if someone has a list of manufacturers, or we're happy to address that.
So I'll just add on to Carl's. We did our own research, and we worked with some of my colleagues to look at the databases to make as close as possible to a full list of stakeholders, in addition to talking to the trade associations so that we don't miss out on the folks who are not members of those organizations. But yeah, we are we do best as we can to make the full list so we don't miss out on others. Thank you.
And we're hoping that the trade associations even can identify people who aren't members. So we're actually going to share our stakeholder list with them so they can tell us whether we've missed anybody or relationships between different manufacturers, things like that.
I just might add a comment is that, this authority we have for information call-in, it seems very simple, but as we started looking at how we would actually execute it, it became very apparent that it's a lot more complex than you might think. And Lizette, as you point out, how do you find who all these manufacturers are, given the global, if you will, market that's out there and people's access through the internet? So we want to be as comprehensive as possible, but we've put a lot of work into just trying to find out who we ask the question to, first and foremost, before, let alone what questions we ask. So.
I know, Dietschle, you covered this a little bit in your presentation, but I was wondering if you could expand a little bit more about why PMMA might not be considered, even though there may be residual amounts of MMA within PMMA. So if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. So what we haven't found too much data on, so we don't know how common it is in the PMMA containing products, and we don't know what would be the concentration or what is the percentage that sometimes either it may have unpolymerized residual MMA or PMMA may degrade to release MMA. So we found several studies that detected, and we also found that CRI reported the concentrations could be the 1.5% of the total product concentration. It was more like a range. So we were hoping today we point out that in the profile and having this conversation with the stakeholders, if anybody has information on the data, what is the typical concentrations we should expect in those type of products. So it is still a draft, but right now in the profile we are talking about MMA as a liquid acrylic monomer, but we are certainly aware that some PMMA containing products may have MMA. We just don't know what will be the concentration in those. So we are hoping that's one of the questions we'll ask stakeholders, manufacturers to step in and tell us about it.
Dichle, I was going to ask you a question, so don't turn off your microphone. I don't believe PMMA is itself listed on the candidate chemicals list, is it?
It is not listed on the candidate chemicals list. MMA is, not the PMMA.
But we could do, if we were to do the powders as a potential future priority product, and we had data on the residual MMA levels, then we would probably be doing, we might describe it, this is completely hypothetical, as, what do you call that, the acrylic powders with MMA, and then we would, if it were unintended or a contaminant or a residue, then we'd have to identify an alternatives analysis threshold, which would be another step for us to do. So we're just not, rather than wait until we have that kind of information, we're proceeding with the products that we have the most information on now. Is that safe to say?
Yes, I mean, we know PMMA is not listed as a kind of chemical, but we found few studies that considers MMA being unpolymerized residual as a PMMA containing compounds, and there's some studies also pointing out that PMMA may degrade to release MMA. Just those are not, we don't have the information on, if that makes sense.
So if there was a product that was PMMA and it was found to have, let's say, 2% MMA, then is that a product that you would consider? I guess I'm trying to get, especially if it's degrading, like how does a manufacturer, how do they handle something like that if it's residual and degrading, but it's a high enough percentage that it poses a health risk?
So, do you want to?
Well, right now we're in the process of identifying products with 1,4-dioxane in the kind of cleaning and personal care products realm, and that is an unintended byproduct of the manufacture of ethoxylated surfactant. So it would be a similar scenario to that, I think. I mean, the impacts and the endpoints are different, but in that case, there might be, we have a better picture of how and to what extent the contaminant is formed, what types of concentrations might be found, things like that. So we're able to sort of, we also know that there are some best practices for reducing the levels. So if we had that kind of information, then we would be in a better position to go forward with it. So.
A comment from online. Inge Van Osh. Does DTSC currently intend to regulate nail products containing polymer MMA, PMMA, and which do not contain intentionally added monomer MMA? Or does it intend to regulate only products with intentionally added liquid monomer MMA? Second question. When does DTSC believe its laboratory analysis of nail products will be complete? Does DTSC intend to finalize the draft profile before the laboratory analysis is complete? Third question. Does DTSC intend to include chemical manufacturers up the supply chain in the data call-in, or will it be focused on nail product manufacturers?
First one was about, do we intend to do PMA containing products? Not at this time, as we just sort of talked about, but we are looking into it. Second question was about the timing of the finalizing of the profile and the lab data, and those two are on sort of, they're being managed independently as different projects. We're not going to I think by the time we have the lab data, we hope to have finalized the profile for MMA and nail products, because we've set aside some time now to consider comments and then prepare it for peer review. So I don't expect that the profile. Chemical manufacturers, Dichle can speak to that. I think we're mainly focused on nail product manufacturers, but she might be able to correct me if I'm wrong.
So that last question was about if we're asking only to nail product manufacturers.
I'll read that again. Does DTSC intend to include chemical manufacturers up the supply chain in the data call-in, or will it be focused on nail product manufacturers?
So this information column, we will contact the nail product manufacturers, and we're planning to focus on the product formulations those nail product manufacturers make. And in terms of going back to Andre's point for the lab testing and finalizing the profile, there are two separate efforts, and we're not necessarily hold off on that, but we are testing some of liquid acrylic monomers in that lab testing. So if those results become available, certainly we can consider adding those to the profile as well. As mentioned, this is a draft profile, so as we have more data and we get input from you, we are going to incorporate those as appropriate.
I was just going to add that based on what we find from the initial information call-in, we may do a future call-in if it seems warranted. It's a significant effort to do it, so we'll have to see what we see.
And to address the question about when the lab study will be complete, we hope that it'll be complete by the end of April. That's our tentative time frame, and then the data should be made public, hopefully, in summer or fall of this year.
Thank you for correcting me earlier. Yeah.
Any other online questions? Anything here in the house? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and do the concluding remarks then, but part of that remark is that we're not done talking, hopefully. Hopefully we will hear from all of you. Dichle has
we had some questions, stakeholder questions coming up.
Oh.
For the concluding remarks.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
We have some stakeholder questions. Question number 1. Are the nail product definitions clear and complete? Question number 2. At what concentration is MMA present as unreacted residual in polymethyl methacrylate, PMMA, containing nail products? What could be the sources of MMA detection in salons after MMA was prohibited in salons? Are there known alternatives to MMA in nail products? Please provide your responses or comments to these questions now, or you may choose to address them on the CalSafer before the public comment period closes on March 20, 2020.
Okay, so that's your homework. Okay, go ahead, Dichle.
And these are just some of the questions. So if you go our CalSafer site, there are additional questions on there. We'll encourage you to take a look at them, and hopefully, if you have responses, provide them before the public comment period closes on the March 20th. Thank you.
I'd also encourage you, if you have a question that comes up later, you can email it to our question box for the program, and we'll get back to you, or you can contact us directly. We're happy to talk with you. And now you have your homework, so answer those questions and we'll move on. But in any case, before we close, I also want to make sure that I thank the people that have worked really hard to get us here today, to Christine and Dichle and our entire NAILS team. and there are others behind the scenes who you don't see up here today who worked hard on this, to the rest of my staff who've helped put on this workshop and help support the process. Once again, thank you for your diligent and outstanding work. Chin, thank you for coming up for this. We appreciate your help. And I'm thinking ahead of time, all of you who are going to submit comments, because again, it really is important for us to learn as we go to make good decisions. I'm thanking the industry ahead of time on the information call-in, because we'll expect and look forward to a robust and complete response to our call-in. As Jichale highlighted, we'll look forward to talking to you further as the results from our lab study come out. That will undoubtedly raise some additional questions. It will provide some additional insights that we'll share. As we further refine our look at some of these existing chemicals, we'll be putting out that information in a little more detail. So, and we'll look forward to finalizing this profile and moving on. While I have you, I would also like to note that the toluene nails package will be moving to public comment this year. Also, if you're interested in some of the other things we're doing, this Friday we're slated to have the public notice of the comment period for our carpets and rugs containing PFAS. We'll hit the streets, and there'll be a 45-day comment period on that. We'd appreciate your input. So there's a lot of things going on, and again, we're very appreciative of your support and information and working with us as we all move safer towards the common goal of producing safer products for everyone. So with that, I think we will close this workshop and look forward to talking with you soon.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to remind you that their comment period ends March 20 at 11:59. And thank you for joining DTSC's workshop list to list nail products containing methyl methacrylate as priority product. Thank you.